I was working in the I was working in the
Okay.
so we're sitting in our security operations center. I'm not sure what happened right now. I think someone got an emergency cell phone call.
Well, we want to make sure we give them a real understanding of what this is like.
See somebody running, that means somebody got hacked.
Something's on
somewhere.
fire.
Something's on fire.
The whole purpose of everything that I do on Twitch and YouTube is to help people who are trying to get into cybersecurity to be able to do so, to land jobs, be able to find the correct skills, and people who are in cybersecurity to be able to grow those skills. And the reality is, if you're here, you're probably you're in the minority. You're one of the hungry ones, because most people, they do what's necessary and they go home and they turn it off. And then there's the rest of us who keep learning and growing. So tell you what, Matt, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Why don't you give us a little bit, we'll take a few minutes because we want to get into the meat. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into cybersecurity, what you do on a daily basis, and then Kash, if you will, go next and kind of tell us your background and tell us what you do on a daily basis at Tevora.
Perfect. Yeah. So I actually started as a web developer, doing programming, web application stuff, dabbling in the web application stuff. I started working in, security vulnerabilities, web app pen testing on my own free time. But being a web developer in startup companies, you kind of take on many roles. So I was also an IT admin. And that kind of led me into being a security admin and then evolving into offensive security where I did pen testing, because that's actually what I had a passion in. I originally wanted to do digital forensics from the start when I got into doing computer security or information security. But I thought, a good place to start would really be understanding how the attackers get in, what are the methods that they use. And so that's kind of where I went the offensive security route first. So I got recruited at a local at the time for me, Los Angeles information security conference. It was a HackerCon layer 1. I got recruited to go work as an information security consultant. Shortly after that, made the transition from developer to information security, and then got picked up at Tevora to do pen testing. And so I kind of been there since. I've had a couple different places I've worked and come back to Tevora.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all worked out. I was an adjunct professor at UCLA for a little bit. I taught pen testing there as well. And then while I was doing that gig, I actually got recruited for Nike. And so I went up there and that's where I'm at now, actually, is in Portland. And I helped start up their pen testing team. We call it practice and consulting, but at a company, it's a team or department. So I helped start up that team, and then really kind of crossed off all my achievements that I wanted to do there, and kind of got bored a little bit with doing the same pen tests every day. It was the same internal apps, the same issues, finding the same issues, the same minutia of communicating to the teams within Nike. Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. And decided to come back to Tevora. So that happened about 6 years ago. And while I was at Nike, I was kind of dabbling in incident response. I was working in the,
Okay.
So we're sitting in our security operations center. I'm not sure what happened right now. I think someone got an emergency cell phone call.
Well, we want to make sure we give them a real understanding of what this is like.
See somebody running, that means somebody got hacked.
Something's on fire.
Something's on fire. Yeah, we're okay. Somebody
want to clip that, please. Okay.
But yeah, so I came back to Tevora and decided to start up the incident response practice, which has been happening for a few years now. And now I'm on the blue side. So, I've learned kind of all the offensive stuff, not all, because there's always stuff to learn, right? There are always new ways to get in. But I have a pretty good understanding, 360-degree perspective, and been enjoying it ever since. And really getting to do what I love or had a passion for originally was forensics. I'm Tevora's one of 12 used to be 12. I'm not sure how many now, but PFIs in the world or for North America. I think there's only about 22 in the world, and 12 in the United States or North America. So
you define that for those of us.
So it's PCI Council. They outline and dictate the security requirements for payment card processing and receiving and all that good stuff. So companies have to adhere to PCI compliance.
Mhm.
And so we were one of 12 that met the requirements to do forensic investigations for payment card breaches and all that good stuff.
Okay.
And so we just been kind of building the team now. Kash is part of the team. He joined us a couple years ago, and I'll let you go ahead and kind of give your background.
All right, good deal. Okay. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
His is I'll try to live it up to his, I should have started. That's what it should have happened. But where did I start? I kind of started different realms, computers when I was a kid. Then I went to actually music route, and I was doing sound engineering for a while, and like studios and stuff for music industry. Then kind of decided to go back towards school to study artificial intelligence, and that was like kind of the route I was in. Doing coding and AI for a couple of years, and stumbled upon Tevora, and I'm like, oh, I've always, been interested in cybersecurity, and I'm like, oh, it just kind of, fate as you have it, line me up to come into here, and I met Matt, and ever since I hit the ground running. I didn't even know how crazy the hacking world was and what it really goes into behind the scenes, and it's just from day one. It really keeps you on your toes, so kind of stuck to it. In between, I dabbled in a lot of system admin, did some administrative stuff, but like Matt said, once you kind of go into this realm, it's like it's fun. It's like exciting new stuff every day. And I've been stuck doing security. I don't know about stuck.
Stuck. Wow. Hey,
That's right.
You don't report to Matt, do you?
I mean, you get in and it's like, what? It's like, what's that movie? He says it in Sopranos all the time. He says, "Once I thought it was out, they pulled me back."
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Kind of deal.
Yep. Every day, new vulnerabilities get
every
pulled back in.
But that's my 30 seconds of how I got here.
Okay, good deal. So, man, it's interesting. The more I talk to people, especially that are, pretty high level in the InfoSec, I hear that a lot about getting bored. They tend to do something and they only can do it for so long. And it's like, I got to have a new challenge, Yep. And I think, honestly, if you're really like grinding, you kind of like make everything, I guess, a commodity at some point. It just becomes routine. And so I always see the need to have to adjust. All right, so for those that may be watching that are not familiar with incident response, can you kind of go through what incident response is, and then for those that are interested in getting into incident response, like what skills, what paths, those type of things to kind of assist them?
Which one do you want to take? You want to do how to get in and skills, or you want me to?
Or you can talk about whatever you want to. So, I mean, it's open. It's free flowing.
I guess like what IR in a nutshell, like on a very, very high level, if I had to compare it to anything, it's like we're the firefighters of computer safety, right? If as Matt says, like something's burning, right? Something's burning down. It's like digitally, I guess, right? Somebody got hacked, and we're on call any time of day, any time of night, 24/7. We get a phone call on our hotline. I mean, something's, some chaos is brewing or is already happened, and we just kind of run and, try to do our best to, I don't know, stop the burning.
Stop the bleeding.
Stop the bleeding, stop the burning. Or if, the place is completely burnt down, at the very minimum, help them get back on track. I think that's kind of where IR is in a general. But
if it's an active breach, get rid of them, cut off their access. Make sure they can't get whatever they're trying to get. If they're trying to get payment information, if they're trying to get intellectual property, whatever it is, cut it off, get them, contain it, eradicate whatever threat it is, and then recover as fast as possible. So,
all right. So a good time to go ahead and throw out the basics right there, the 6 or 5 steps for incident response. Anybody want to take that one?
Yeah. So the IR lifecycle, this is kind of what we live and breathe on. This is established by the NIST Institute that set the guidelines for incident handling. So you have 6 phases, I think it is. Let's see, you have identification, which is, when the alert comes in or whatever the issue is, making sure it's not a false positive, that it's an actually incident, not just an event. And I can talk about the difference between those two. But anyway, then once you've identified what the problem is and how many systems have been affected, or if it's just one user or whatever, working to contain it, right? So like say you've got ransomware and it's going across 10 different systems at the time. How do we cut off those 10 systems from the rest of the network so that it doesn't spread? and we get that kind of containment around it. So just like a fire, right? That's why we talk about it being like firefighters, getting around that fire, making sure it doesn't spread out, and then going in and putting water on it, right? Getting rid of whatever the malware is or whatever the threat is. And that can be through, getting rid of the actual piece of malware, rotating passwords, putting in new firewall rules, patching, whatever it is that caused the issue. And so that's containment and eradication kind of rolled up into one. And then recovery, making sure everything's kind of working 100% before you put it back into production, and then monitoring it once it's back into production, right? Because sometimes we think that we identified the point of entry, and we identified some other point of entry that they didn't know about, but the attackers had another way in. So you got to monitor, make sure that you actually did plug the hole. And then once recovery is finished, then you move into lessons learned. Lessons learned is really just documenting what happened. What can you do in the future to prevent that same issue from happening again, or mitigating it to a certain extent. So.
Okay. And we can actually let's dig into each step. So sure. And then feel free to use an active incident. You kind of walk through different phases or something, because I know you got plenty of stories to share. Not sure you can share all of some, but for those that you can share, could you kind of walk us through some of the scenarios, like real life things, so they can kind of relate to what it's like to get that, I guess, to get that sure. call or alert.
I think we'll talk with the manufacturer across the world. That one.
Which one?
It was like the domain controllers.
Yeah, the big one.
Yeah. So this is probably the worst ransomware event that I've ever worked with. Probably Kash as well.
Yeah, pretty bad.
So this manufacturer and also retailer has operations around the world, like on all the major continents. I got a call about 8 a.m. And that was the day that was the week I was on call. So we take rotations. Normally we start our day about 9 a.m., but this happened to be early. Jumped on the phone, scoped out the incident, realized it was pretty major, booked my plane ticket, and I was on site within a couple hours. It was, like the Midwest areas where I had to go. I'm up in Portland. So headed over to the airport, got on the plane and headed out. So the incident, what had happened was the company was based here in North America. I think their headquarters is actually based somewhere in like Europe somewhere, but the office that the security team was here in America, and they started receiving calls early in the night from Europe and Asia that the systems were going down. And what had happened was the attackers had got in, and it was the Ryuk ransomware. They had, who knows how long they've been in. I think when we were doing the investigation, we determined it was about 14 days, and they had made their way all the way up to domain admin, and through group policy pushed out the ransomware in one swoop across the entire org. Oh yeah. So pure chaos. I think it was something around 20 domain controllers around the world. Okay. And thousands, like 20, 30,000 endpoints, all encrypted all at once. Yeah, it was pretty nasty. Full, it
was pure chaos for them.
Pure chaos. Yeah. You're talking manufacturing, shipping, online orders, point of sale in the stores. Everything was down. And my team, we spread out throughout the world. we had people on different continents, all communicating. We were chasing the sun as we were kind of trying to get everything back up and running. We were able to contain it, and we basically, because it was so severe, had to build the network from scratch. Right? They had to build a new domain controller in a separate cloud instance. In an Azure environment. And from there, start onboarding all these systems one by one. We had to kind of take them through a safety check. We would clean out a department, and then we would slowly move them into the new network. Area. Yeah. And we'd monitor them before putting them into full recovery and like allowing, certain firewall rules. And we ended up getting them back up and running in 14 days. And that was coming from
that's pretty good.
Backups. Yeah, it was pretty good. And we did have some help. We had another IR team that they had called in to kind of help with some of the continents and languages that we didn't cover. So our team has pretty vast, language, like, Kash speaks Farsi, we have Spanish, we have Russian, but there were some areas like Italian and French that we didn't, we needed some help. So yeah, but it was a pretty nasty event. And I guess going through the IR life cycle, the identification piece probably took
I think
a full day, I think, if not two, just to kind of get an understanding, because everything was encrypted to the point where we couldn't even get on the boxes to really understand what was happening.
Okay.
But we were in the data center, plugged into the console of the physical servers and the virtual servers to try and figure out what was happening. And that was when we determined we saw the ransom note. So we knew it was ransomware. We knew it was Ryuk, but determining how they had gained access and pushed out, that's, I think, ultimately took about a month. And then the containment, that was done within 48 hours, I think. And the recovery was that took the next 12 days.
Well, I mean, the containment it's like it hit pretty much everything, so it was like more or less contained.
Yeah
by itself. But
and then
that was pretty chaos.
So that the eradication was really just building a new network. And when we built the new network, we built it on a zero trust model, which we can talk about a little bit more, but just definitely. Very strict environment, so that we limited, if there was a reinfection, we limited the access, so it wasn't a full blown attack. And then when it was all said and done, after a couple of weeks of doing forensic analysis, we determined that it was just some poor accountant lady who had opened the wrong email.
No,
and took down the entire multi-billion-dollar company.
One click away. Yeah,
that's a bad day, man.
And we do a pretty good job of keeping our clients out of the headlines. But in this case, the client actually came clean and
they revealed themselves.
Yeah, they revealed themselves in the news. We're not going to say it here, but
no, I don't.
You could probably do.
We don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah. But yeah, we do typically do a pretty good job of keeping them out of the news.
Gotcha.
But I mean, to add to your story, I mean, definitely it was much more like chaos than he's making it seem. I mean, people there hyperventilating, people that are responsible for certain business users. It's like, you want me to rebuild how many domain controls? You want me to do what now? You want me to add how many, scan all these in? I remember a big concern of theirs, and especially with ransomware, is I hope to God it didn't hit our backups,
And that was one of my questions. Yeah.
Right. And it didn't hit their backups, but the problem is that you had terabytes of data that was in the cloud, and pulling that down over the wire took
forever,
hours, if not days, for them to get stuff back down. And so we actually ended up having to pay for hard drives to be overnighted. It was faster to do carrier pigeon than it was to transfer it over the internet, So one thing I should probably bring up is the ransom itself. So we initially tried to do, we brought in a partner of ours to do negotiations, and this company, they're like all ex-NSA FBI guys. And they were familiar with this group. So that was good, right? Because you kind of want to know, if I do pay the ransom, are they going to give me the decryptor, right? And is the decryptor going to work? Right? Because we do, I would say almost all of ours where they've paid for the decryptor didn't work 100% of the time. But anyway, you also want to make sure you're not funding terrorism, which is something that I didn't know 3 years ago was a thing. Like now, when you pay these ransom, you have to be careful that you're not actually funding terrorism, because then you open up Department of Homeland Security, FBI, or, whole new can of worms. But anyway, when we brought in the negotiator, I never heard what the price was, but the FBI was involved with us, and the FBI guy told me that it was the largest ransom he'd ever heard at the time. So at the time, which was 2017, 18. So it's probably a couple million, because now, I mean, just recently in May, CNA Financial paid 40 million. So
I think
that's the biggest one to date. I think so.
Yeah.
Originally it was 60 million, but they negotiated down to 40 million. So
I mean, that's funny. The fact that we're talking about this, right? They negotiated down to $40 million. Wow.
It's crazy.
Well, let's dig into it. Let's go back a little bit. So you're on site. Let's talk a little bit more, not necessarily specific about the client, but just the process. So when you're going in and containment, so you got, first identification. Let's talk in detail about that. So you're connected to the machines locally. They pretty much, sounds like pretty much 100% of the network is encrypted at this point. and you're having. So how do you go about identifying the malware? Is it just based on the note that was left, or some of the some of the, what do we call it, artifacts in the forensic side? Just tell us kind of what did you do to be able to identify it, and in other situations, what are kind of some of the procedures in general that you use when it comes to identification?
Yeah. So initially, when I got on site, you do kind of like a little bit of an interview with whoever's involved, right? Just to kind of get an understanding, a lay of the land, what's going on. And then, we tried to jump on the servers to get that, but because so much was being encrypted all at once, the CPU usage was just through the roof.
Okay.
And we weren't really able to kind of get in there. So one thing that we were able to do was get on the workstations, and because those were encrypted and done, we could take a forensic image. You want to walk through kind of the Tableau and all that, right blocker and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so a couple of different systems that we use. One is a Tableau. It's like a bright blocker. It's just like a portable system that you'll take, and you'll be able to replicate the drive bit for bit. And we do like MD5 or like SHA-256 verification to make sure the data is precisely exactly the same that we pulled it. And then from there, you kind of dump, and you're literally dumpster diving, right? Kind of, I say in a way where you see like forensic guys on the TV shows, right? We had like a whiteboard behind us. Anything that we would find, any remnants of something fishy in logs or PowerShell lines, timelines, timestamps are a really big key to determine not only like where the file is, but where's the first exact one? Where is that first alert pop up? And
you start peeling back the layers.
Yeah, you kind of go backwards. And I think log reviews is, I love doing log reviews.
Okay.
It's kind of just like dumpster diving, really. And you have like endless amount of log reviews.
For the record, Kash is like the only one that loves log reviews.
Yeah, because you're talking about, you don't at this point, you're identification, so you don't necessarily know how many days, weeks, months.
Right.
And the fact that you enjoy looking at that, you're weird, man.
That's why I say I don't know. It just kind of stumbled in my head. Security's cool. It's fun. That's what happens nowadays. Every time we get something, I'm like, "Can I get logs? Like logs?" He's like, "We don't have logs."
Hey, that's what makes the human race so good. There's a person who's created who likes everything, right? So, all right. So anyway, so you're digging into these logs. You got plenty of logs. How do you go about like evaluating good stuff?
We start from a timeline, right? Kind of like what he was saying is like, where was the first indicator that we just received in general? Whether the first call that Matt got, and then he'll say, "Hey, my first call that I got from company was at 8 a.m. on this day." All right, that's 1 point on our timeline. We'll tag it and we'll say, "Hey, first call came in." That way we know it's obviously not going to be after that, right? Whatever happened is going to be before. So that kind of helps us, like you say, kind of peel back the layers, go backwards. Then we'll kind of talk to the client customer and say, "Hey, what is the first alert that you guys saw? Where did that come in? Did it come in on your endpoint detection system? Did it come in from a user saying, 'Hey, my computer is going slow,' or 'Hey, I can't access these data resources that I need to do my job'?" Where was that first hint of like, "Oh, there's something wrong"?
Yeah.
And then
that sets us back another.
That'll take us back
just
another
keep moving the goalpost.
X amount of time. Exactly. And then we'll say, okay, the first indicator was system X for user Y, right? We'll get that and we'll try to do logs on that, see how far back that goes. And then, through those logs, you find another piece of the puzzle, and you say, okay, this log, there was this time. And then around that same time, you'll kind of go analyze, I guess, like connections, right? Network connections from that machine.
Modifications, registry changes.
What happened? Where did it happen? Did another computer connect to that computer around the same time? And then, the rabbit hole can just keep going back. Eventually you find the...
Well, part of the forensic process too is ingesting the hard drive and the data that's on it, right? And like Kash said, those timestamps, all that stuff gets put into a super timeline, right? That our software will go through, read all the change dates, the modification creation, all that good stuff. And as we get new dates, we can start looking at that timeline, and we can click on the timeline and kind of dive in and see what directories, what files were modified. And then we can start looking around, if we identify malware or some sort of like weird exe or, whatever it is, if it's a Linux machine, some sort of weird, executable, we can go through and start figuring out, well, how did that get there? Who owns this file? When was it written? Right. And then like Kash said, go to the logs, start looking at network connections, remote desktop connections usually is a good source. PowerShell history is usually a good source. And then from there, start figuring out. And that's actually what we did on that case was peeled it back. We found the malware hiding in the sysvol somewhere in there. And then we figured out that it was actually pushed out through group policy, went to the domain controller, was able to look at the group policy when it was created, by who it was created for, and then found out, oh, it was a domain admin that nobody had ever heard of, right? Yeah. And then, okay, well, how did this domain admin get created? Where was it created? And that brought us back to the region in the world. Yeah. And then the region took us over to Asia. And in Asia, we started kind of, okay, well, that domain controller holds these different systems. And that's where we started going down, and we found the accountant that was popped. So.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Go ahead.
Long story short.
No, because I'm rapping. I'll be honest with you. I'm asking lots of questions that. So for me, I'm a blue teamer too by trade. Okay, so awesome. I spend all my time on Twitch red teaming though to kind of see the other side. So so I got notes here. So let's go back. Let's talk about it. So I first learned about write blockers. I was in the FBI Citizens Academy. And so they brought in some of their forensics people, and that was the first time they told me about write blockers. And so we were trying to figure out, like, is this something that we need? Because, you got a couple options. You can use FTK, CAPE, or several other programs to do imaging. But is that the same, and how valuable is that as opposed to using a write blocker and then just doing a full disk copy versus a CAPE copy or FTP memory copy and stuff like that? And so just really trying to understand what to use, what's the value of each, and because I might be going to talk to my manager and say, hey, we got to get some write blockers after this stream, you know what I'm saying? So, so could you share, like, for those of us who work kind of in corporate, because the thing is, if it gets to that point, we're bringing in our incident responders, but for like one or two affected machines, it's a great opportunity for us to go through these procedures and make sure that we can respond to minor incidents that don't require us to bring in an incident responder.
Yeah. I think in that situation, it's really a matter of what are we going to do with this data once we've captured it. And so in this case, in this situation, their legal counsel was involved early on, and so was the FBI. Right, the law enforcement was in there pretty early on. So we didn't do write blockers for everything, but we did it on key systems that we thought were going to be valuable. They would have valuable information that could be used in the court of law. And so we needed to capture information that was that could hold up courtroom scrutiny, right? So we captured it at this point in time. Here's the MD5 hash. When we were done doing the analysis, here's the MD5 hash. Nothing changed. We didn't do anything that modified that information. Here's your evidence. And so when you're doing corporate incident response, and you know this, sometimes you don't have the luxury of doing a write blocker that takes hours to bit by bit duplicate, stuff like that. And so, so that was kind of where it was a little bit of a gray area for us there. The domain controller, we definitely did that on, or we had them pull the hard drives if there was like a physical hard drive that we could just duplicate with our setup that we have. And then that one workstation we did it with. But once we had enough information off that one workstation, we were really just going in with FTK on the rest of them and just confirming our results and kind of moving more swiftly on the incident response side more than the forensic side. So
okay.
And that's, I think, one of the things that people they do go hand in hand, forensics and incident response, but how you handle things early on when you're responding can definitely dictate whether forensics properly needs to be performed, or if it's just like what I call triage forensics, where I'm just going in, I'm trying to find the indicators of compromise, I'm trying to find, what happened, and I'm trying to just stop the bleeding. So
okay, all right, and then back to Kash, Logman himself, man. You need like a superhero suit with a big L on it. You know what I'm
saying? As a blue teamer yourself, do you love logs?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, Like network logs is kind of fire. I ain't even lie to you, man. Like when I'm in the network logs, I feel pretty at home. I'll tell you the logs that I hate: Windows event logs.
Yeah.
I don't want what's wrong with Windows event logs. They tell you a lot of stuff.
So for me, like to me, it's absolutely insane that it's difficult to tell between a lot of times when a person is logging on interactive over or connecting remotely and logging in over your RDP and stuff like that. Like looking at the event codes, and I know you're supposed to have you got a 3, 2, and a 1, as far as those login types. But man, when interrogating logs, like literally, okay, here's one of my pet peeves: an account log off, like a Kerberos. I don't know why I'm on my call, but she knows I'm streaming. I text her. But a Kerberos, I think, account lockout versus a physical interactive keyboard, enter your password multiple time lockout. So I've done so much digging to try to understand the difference, because I set up Splunk alerts for those type of things. And I was getting all these false alerts, like account lockout, account lockout. And they would call the people and they say, no, I'm not locked out. And so it took a lot of digging. So like those are the kind of things that are very annoying to me. So if you could, maybe you can finally solve this. Which event code or which event code combination, right? Because sometimes the event ID will be the same, but there may be multiple smaller things to help you to identify when there's more of somebody leaves a drive connected, and then you get lockout message versus when somebody's actually entered their password multiple times and you get a complete lockout and have to do a reset of the account.
I don't even know the event code off the top of my
I
head.
mean, yeah.
I
have my cheat sheet. Yeah,
Microsoft, man.
There's like thousands of event codes. I know it's in like the 4,000 something. I look for those, but I think like at a high level, what I initially do, especially depends on the system, some people, they don't even have logging on, which blows my mind. Right. So there's that problem too, or like they'll give me a system and they say, hey, we got popped last week, and I'll call them back and I'll say, look, your logs only go till yesterday. So what do you want me to look for exactly? Right. So, but I think at a very high level, especially when time is of the essence on these large scale, like enterprise breaches or whatever, is I just try to blast through it instead of trying to go granular to differentiate the type of log on events is where do I see the biggest red flag? Okay. And I kind of go from there, right? I'll do things PowerShell, like Matt was saying. PowerShell is typically where I really want to look and see, is there any random chunk of PowerShell encrypted code run on any log?
Base 64 encoded.
Yeah, some base 64 encoded. That's like huge red flag. Let me start there. And that's kind of where I like to find those needles in the haystack of logs, and then I'll kind of like ping the team. I'll go, oh, I found something strange, boom. And I put it up, and then, then we'll kind of keep going. I like to find those up. But like you said, those Microsoft events IDs. Yeah. Definitely have my cheat sheet.
So we had a guy, he's no longer with us. And this is one of the reasons why. But he was going through remote desktop logs, and he was like, oh, I found it. And it was like, you remember this? I do. And it was like a date that was beyond our attack window. And I was like, oh, well, good job, man. Like you might have actually found the point of entry, because that's way before we thought they were in. And he's looking at I was like, show me, can you show me? And we're looking at it. And
he was a new guy, by the way. Very green disclaimer, massive.
And so we're looking at the remote computer, because I was like, well, what IP was it? And before we even got to the IP, I saw the host name, and the host name was one of ours. Yes. He was looking at his own logs. On his machine.
Ouch. Ouch.
And I was trying
I don't know what lesson needs to be learned there, but it's a funny story.
Well, I think the story there is, check your data 10, 15 times.
Yeah, check the source first. Yeah.
Because I mean, the thing is, like, it's like, so I gave an example last night. It's like,
I guess that goes with your 2 and 3, right? You have 2 sources and all that good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
The chat said, "Ouch! Wait, who hired the guy?" So, I know. I would say. Well, I can tell you, like, one of the things I learned is kind of like, like I used to be very aggressive when I thought I found something. I'd be like, "Hey, I found it," But now I've learned over time, man, it's like you find it and you check 5 times and you dig, you find other sources and stuff like that. You really want to verify the data, because that's the last thing you want to do. End up completely looking stupid. But yeah. So.
Oh yeah, and you go back to the client, and you're like, we found it, and the client's like, No, that's
Yeah.
pretty standard. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Well, so here's another one that also big discussion. A lot of people ask this. And so, and by the way, for those of you joining the stream, they're with Tevora. Tevora has become kind of a cool, like, friend. We kind of met through the social media thing and stuff like that. And so really impressed because you all did, I want to say you did a capture the flag exercise.
Yep.
That's when I came.
Yeah, you participated. Yeah.
And you guys partnered with Immersive Labs, I think, for that one or something like that.
We love Immersive Labs.
So, yeah. And so for me, it's a great opportunity. By the way, welcome, High Tech. And so I formed a relationship with them, and I gained a lot of respect because there's it's a lot of very talented people out there, and they're not working for, you kind of got the big names that everybody knows, right? Yeah. And everybody defaults to them. Quite a bit. Yeah, but you got a lot of people like Tevora and others behind the scene that are taking care of some huge cases that you might not know of. So that's why I enjoy doing these type of streams. So here's another
everyone
question.
That comes on my team, I tell them every year we have one huge one that hits the media. I don't know what it will be, but we always have one that's always in the major media outlets for breaches. So we always try, like I said, we always try and keep them out, but it happens.
Keeps us employed.
Yeah.
Job security.
Well, I got one. So especially for your other blue teamers out there, the discussion, SIM log retention duration.
Yes, log retention. See, actually, I get so upset when they don't have it.
And so for those in chat, SIM is basically, let me make sure I explain this. If you're getting into the field, you talk about SIMs, it's basically you're taking logs from firewalls, computers, everywhere you're taking logs, you're bringing them together so people can search through all this information quickly is a better word, and efficiently. And so the discussion is when you're taking this much data, first of all, you have to pay for a place to store it. You got to build storage or you got to pay for it. And typically you're going to put that off-site in the cloud and somebody else's network, to store it. And it gets very expensive if you're using Splunk, or it could be Elastic or others, out there. So
Sumo Logic.
Sumo Logic, that's right. Sumo.
Logarithm.
It's plenty of. But the thing is, you have to pay for that storage. That's a lot of data. And so the thing is,
taking a lot of data
for every company out there. Okay, you're gonna help a lot of people here, all 9 of them. Okay, so for the companies out there trying to figure out what's best, what's the ideal scenario when you come in? Kash is probably gonna like this. When you come in, what would be the ideal scenario as far as the amount of logs and type of logs, network, DNS, when event logs, period? What would be the best case scenario for you?
I mean, at the very minimum, like, please log.
Please log
a little bit, like more than a day or two. But I don't know. I mean, logs from everywhere, endpoints, right? Servers, your applications, right? Application log if you're using SSO logs. Time frame, I don't know. What would you want to say? At least 6 months.
So I would go the PCI route on the recommendations there. So 30 days.
Yeah.
And then I think it's 1 year.
Yeah, one
offline, like available, but not readily available. So
at least
I think that's what it is, or it's 3 months like on site and then a year off site. I have to look it up, but
I mean, remember,
but at least 30 days. Like we just had a case this morning, or not this morning, but this week, where they wanted us to find what had happened, and the logs were overwritten within 24 hours. So we gave them our best case estimate on what happened based on other factors.
I'd be like, a lot could have happened.
Right. Yeah. So, and especially when it's brute forcing, right? And that was the case this week on that specific case was someone had brute forced SSH. So they just tried a bunch of different logins, for those that don't know brute forcing, over and over and over. Well, all that's doing is just writing the log file of every failed login. And so we didn't have any successful logins. We just had a bunch of failed logins once we started looking at it. But we guessed that in this case, it was like a standard user, like a service account that was popped and it's probably brute forcing. So,
Okay.
but yeah, definitely, I would go 30 days at least.
At least. But I asked for your best case scenario. So what when you
best
walked in?
Case?
Yeah, you walk in, and what did it happen? I want to specifically.
Infinite.
Yeah.
I had a client, one of the clients I was talking to. What was the number they had? How many days exactly? But I calculated it was 6 years.
6 years.
Their log retention went down 6 years. And
they're
I'm
rich. They're really. That's a very rich company.
We've had some government
in Dubai or something.
We've had government work that they're 2 years. That's their standard policy.
Yeah. Okay.
Is to keep firewall roles for 2 years. Most corporations do, I think and not because of PCI, but I think they do that 30 days, 1 year offline. So, but we get, like, for PFI, we'll get called in for payment card breaches that are for companies that are supposed to be PCI compliant. So they're supposed to be meeting those minimum requirements, and it'll be for a breach that happened, last year, and then there's no logs. There's no way to go back that far in the history. And so it's tough to, give a definitive answer on how it happened. But you can, guess based on other things. So.
Yeah. But I mean, if I had to, like, give some kind of recommendation, is like, you can take some of these modern new attacks, right? These guys kind of live low key for a while before they actually start doing stuff. And if your logs don't go back, if your initial alert was today, and then we're trying to dive back, and the guy's been there for more than the year mark, even, I mean, there's only so far you can go back, right? So I guess it's like, determine how much you're willing to spend on the logs, but ideal scenario, the more the better.
I think we've seen most are like 2 to 3 weeks they're living in the environment. And I think that still falls within that 30 days,
Yeah. And that's a good number, because the thing is, we've kind of struggled to understand, like, what is that dwell period, right? That's the term they use, dwell period, a lot of times. And so, I've heard it, people being in as long as 6 months in some bad scenarios, but on average, I mean, you kind of have to be reasonable. So you're saying if you got a month, you're kind of baseline, but if you got like 90 days or something like that, would that kind of be more of a decent number as far as like retention to kind of ensure? Or I mean, better case scenario. It's not best case, because I think best case is years.
I mean, like you said, the cost is just it's a lot. And so if you can do 90 days, 30 days readily available, and then 90 days or an additional 60 days offline, like
I'm thinking like 90 days and 1 year offline or something. 90 days regular available and a year offline.
I'd have to look up the PCI requirement. I can't. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's either 30 or 90, and then it's a year for sure on the on the offline. So but yeah, I mean, we've had cases where crypto miner was put on the system with a rootkit, and it was there for over a year. So the attackers were there and they were using it. They could have come back at any point during that year, so yeah, there's some instances where attackers are definitely living in the environment for longer than 14, 21 days, whatever.
It's High Tech said SolarWinds hack had them in the system for months. I mean, that's an interesting one, right? I don't know if you want to go there, because I want to stay on the incident response, but the more I hear about that one, man, it's that's bad. So anyway, so we're going. So just to bring it back, I got kind of answer some of my personal questions, but when it talks about the identification phase, I think you were in the logs, you were locked out, and I don't know if you ever got a chance to kind of go through how, at this point, when you're locked out of a system, how do you go about doing identification and determining what type of ransomware it was? You knew it's ransomware, but how did you determine the type of ransomware?
Yeah, so in that case, it was the ransom message.
Or the extension too.
They gave it away. Yeah, it was either it was the extension, which in that case was Ryuk, right? RYUK. And then that was what every file that was encrypted was RYUK. The ransom note was similar to other Ryuk, or however you say it.
Whatever.
I don't know. we say Ryuk. I don't know what it is.
And
similar to other ransom notes.
Is that referencing the freaking anime Shimigami?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, well,
I never saw that.
I thought it was Shimigami or something like that is what it was. But anime fans, man.
And then also whoever the ransomware is, they'll have usually a standard email. They'll have a few, but threat intel can tell you kind of what threat actor group it is, stuff like that. Usually Proton Mail.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
we've
also had some. What's that?
I just used Proton Mail last night when I was doing.
I used Proton Mail.
I was playing around on the dark web, man. Proton VPN and Proton Mail. So cool.
But we've had instances where where we didn't know, even using the ransomware note, like we went through threat intel, trying to figure out who the people were and all that good stuff, and we still weren't able to determine what family of ransomware it was. Do you remember that one? That was a few months ago.
Wasn't that didn't that turn out to be Playbook?
Oh, you know what? It could have been Playbook.
Yeah. So, and then
right
after Playbook got taken
down. Then Playbook disbanded. So, but yeah, anyway, so there's a couple ways to identify it in the systems where the CPU usage is too high.
Yeah.
What we did was, in that case, I was able to actually get on through the ESXi console. And then from there, I was able to terminate all the processes of the encryption had already done the damage, but they were still doing more encryption. I was able to terminate all the processes in a task kill situation. And then from there, I was able to kind of get some IOCs. But what we typically do is, if we can't get to that system, we just move on to the next one, whatever system we can, to start building kind of what IP addresses are they coming from, or what is the malware hash, where's the malware stored, anything that we can get that information from, that's where we're going to move to. So and then we'll cut off the machines that we don't have access to, right? Cut them off on the network so that they're not spreading out. So
well, and I want to talk about that because I would definitely dig into the containment phase. But with this malware spread, are you seeing, how does it happen? So do they encrypt like the DCs first and then spread, or they encrypt everything else and then work their way back to the DCs last?
Yeah. So in that case, it was a group policy that pushed out to everything except for the domain domain controllers. And then I guess the scheduled task, I don't actually remember when the domain controller got encrypted.
Yeah, I'm trying to think too.
But based on that group policy, in fact, the group policy pushed out the software to each endpoint, and then also did the scheduled task to run it. So it could have even done it all at the same time with the domain controller, because at that point the group policy and malware was already on the system. All I had to do was execute. So no more. It didn't need any more command and control or anything from the domain controller. So well, in this situation, was this more of a software as a service, or was it a APT, or a nation? Well, probably not a nation state. Nation states typically. This wasn't a nation state. It was more like a software service. They had bought I'm assuming they bought that ransomware off, dark web somewhere, and then whatever group it was. Yeah, I actually never, because I didn't sit in on the negotiations on that one, so I don't know what group it was, or I think they were Eastern Europe, but that was about all that I know. I didn't actually know if it was like, like Fin 8 or whatever. Fin 8, Fin 7, they don't really do ransomware, but you get the idea.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we've identified
Sorry, I'll let you talk.
No, go ahead. Sorry. No, Kash, you can jump in, man. I just got some bullet points, because I'm really unpacking this, man. Like this, for people who really want to know this is a great opportunity to hear it, So, and I'm thinking, so next we're going to talk about the containment phase. Okay. So we identified, so now we want to contain. So we got several methods of containing this malware. So of course you can use your MDR, as a method. You can use network containment, segmentation and stuff like that. So in this scenario, which they're already getting blasted and it's already out of control, what kind of containment steps did you all take to be able to, we can talk about the scenario, but then talk in general, because the thing is, a lot of times there's like maybe 4-8 hour response time typically, I would say, before you have an incident response team on site. Sometimes maybe even longer than that. So for a company that's already impacted, it's very important for us to take certain actions before the professionals get there. So tell me about the containment with this incident in general, if you don't mind.
Do you want to talk about our deployment?
About what?
Our deployment
of the sensors?
Yeah.
Like general, if for the companies that don't have any kind of EDR or any kind of dashboard like that, what we typically come do is we'll put that kind of sensors throughout the environment where we can. Yeah, for like companies like this, it's like told us you can't necessarily push it out, right? It'll be a little bit more chaotic, but um, in a scenario where we can, essentially, we'll try to isolate the devices that we know are
Mm-hmm.
having those issues directly. That we still have communication to them directly.
Mm-hmm.
In instances like this, that it's like giant sections or giant chunks of the network that are, massive devices on there, possibly just cut off that entire branch of the network, right?
Yep.
Like cut off that entire IP subnet completely from the main tree, and kind of go from there. But if it's like smaller and it's doable, cut off the machine at the very minimum. Hopefully you're able to catch it quick enough where it's only hit like X number of devices, small, single digit figures or something. But
Mm-hmm.
in the event where it's in like, the hundreds or even thousands like this case, I mean, containment is like, it may be a little bit outside the scope, right?
Well, do you find most of your clients are very well segmented, with firewalls out there in the field, or are they mostly flat networks?
Mostly flat. So
well, yeah,
I think there's definitely a confusion, and I don't know if it's like in the industry or what, but you say, hey, is your network segmented? And they're like, yeah, we're segmented. But I think what they think is like that they have different locations,
yeah,
but not different VLANs and segments of like departments and rules and firewall rules.
They're talking about router hops.
Right, exactly. And so there's always like, even when I did pen testing, like, hey, is your corporate store segmented from your headquarters? Oh yeah, absolutely. And then you go in and you're touching, oh yeah, and stores aren't supposed to talk to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically doing an in-map scan or something across the entire org, including the headquarters.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think you understood what I'm talking about when I say segmentation, right? So.
It makes me think of that one company where they called us, their whole thing was hit with ransomware. And we're like, yeah, so what kind of tools? Like, we're trying to understand their environment, right? Like, yeah, what do you have in place? How are you doing? What's your security? We're like, oh yeah, no, don't worry. We're okay. We're doing network segmentation. It works. And then we're like, I mean, apparently it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because everything on every subnet is encrypted. So there's that.
Yeah. So in that case, for that huge ransomware gig, the containment, they had antivirus endpoint protection on their systems. It was out of date. And then we came in with our EDR. And so at that time, I think it was Card Built in Black.
No, their solution?
No, not their solution.
Oh no, I don't want to name.
I'm not mentioning their solution.
Yeah.
I'm not plugging that company.
No, we're not calling any names. Okay, we're gonna stay.
No, I think we were using Carbon Black. If it wasn't Carbon Black, it was CrowdStrike.
I think we were using.
We were using Carbon Black.
Yeah,
I think.
Carbon Black.
Before we really liked Carbon Black. Now we're more CrowdStrike than the one. But anyway, and what had happened is once we identified the issues and also the fact that their AV was out of date, we updated their AV, which allowed us to actually kill off the infections that were out there and stop them from reinfecting and running constantly. And then we were able to go with EDR and kind of go in and start scalpeling, right? Starting to remove all the different threats. There we were able to institute SHA-256 blocking, right? So anything that matched the malware would not be able to execute if the Carbon Black or whatever the EDR was that was on the system would run. And then if there was any systems that were really bad, obviously you want to wipe and restore. And that's what we did actually on some of them. And we were able to, once we had a system restored or we thought was clean, then we were able to slowly migrate them to the new network. So they actually, because the domain controllers were toast, they built a new domain controller and then started adding users and systems slowly. And so what we were doing is just moving as we cleaned them up and as we got them contained and what we thought was eradicated, then we moved them into the new domain, the new domain, the new network.
Yeah.
So that kind of moves us from containment into eradication a little bit.
Well, and tell me, so
those kind of go hand in hand. So,
well, I was gonna say, so CrowdStrike, how effective or how useful is the RTR in situations like that?
RTR is the response.
Yeah, it's a real-time response within. I think within CrowdStrike. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you all use that a lot during the situation, or do you have other methods that you prefer?
We did use that a lot. And I love that feature. In fact, there's a lot of EDR, well, not a lot anymore, but there used to be a lot of EDRs that didn't even have that feature, which was one reason we liked Carbon Black, because they were kind of one of the first ones that had that live response type feature. And then also CrowdStrike with the Falcon query language, being able to go across, it's like Splunk.
Yeah.
You can do awesome queries and identify multiple endpoints that have whatever file or, whatever it is that you're looking for. So the combination of those two really helped identify and allow us to get an understanding of which systems were affected, which in this case was all of them. But
okay.
But then you can monitor for any replay attacks or any kind of network connections coming back in, stuff like that. So
okay, all right. So you say we kind of stepped into eradication at this point. So we can talk about the first company you mentioned, and we can talk about this kind of if you want to compare and contrast. So what as far as eradication when it comes to this ransomware, the encryption, and I know you said for y'all in this scenario, eradication essentially was rebuilding the network.
Right. It really was. It was rebuilding the network. It was moving into that zero trust model, least privilege. So domain admins, they never had jump boxes in this environment. So we actually implemented a whole admin VLAN where if you needed to do anything, you had to go into that admin VLAN with multi-factor authentication. And then from there, you could jump in on the domain controller, make whatever changes you need to make. Or if you need to do workstation changes, you're from the admin network only. And whitelisting, and really, zero trust, you have to look it up because I'm not going to do it justice, but really tightens down the hatches on access. And, it's right in the name, zero trust. Like you don't trust anybody. They have to prove who they are, why they need access, and when they need access, right? Because if it's outside business hours, you don't get access, stuff like that, right? And so that was part of that new design. The domain controllers were gone. They were toast. So they ended up rebuilding 20 something domain controllers around the world. And then some of the workstations, because this company had a marketing team, graphic design team, designers, manufacturers, shipping, all that stuff. If the systems were salvageable, we cleaned them up and put them back in. If they were completely gone, we just wiped and reinstalled. Now, by the book, you're supposed to wipe and reinstall, but in this case, it was so much that it wasn't feasible to maintain business continuity, and get everyone back up and get the retail side back up and running. In fact, that was that was part of our planning session when we were working on the recovery piece, was which systems do we prioritize first, right? And that was shipping and point of sale.
Okay.
So that they could get the online orders out or whatever orders that they had to go. And then also the point of sale retail stores so that those could get up and operational, because that's going to be the first thing that gets reported in the social media and media, right? And we were at that time still trying to keep them out of the headlines. So, if you start seeing all these stores, your favorite store closed, of course, you're going to snap a picture of it and put it on Instagram or Twitter and like, hey man, something weird's going on here.
Yeah, it's 1 p.m. and doors are locked.
Yeah, exactly.
Either a robbery or a hack. So.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you rebuild it. So then I guess so we just did and so for eradication, you're rebuilding. And I do want to talk a little bit more about the network segmentation, because as far as recommended practice for people who are truly trying to segment, if you got multiple locations, multiple stores, essentially that means you're going to have a managed firewall at every single store, I guess, to truly do that correctly, and only allow in and out the protocols that are absolutely necessary. But you also have to be able to completely, and see, this is what I'm a big fan of CrowdStrike, because I like the fact that you can lock it down, but you still maintain the ability to communicate, Whereas, because some scenarios you can segment, but you can also lock yourself out. So
want to do that.
Yeah. So
we had that happen actually. That same case from Monday was the brute forcing their IT admin. We told him eliminate SSH login and just use keys. And he did that, and he didn't put his key on. So he locked himself out.
Yes.
He's like, hey, do you guys still have SSH access? So it happens.
Yeah. Now are there any options, have you ever tried to use, in a scenario that's really bad, where you use routing to lock it off? Basically just either shut down a router completely or I guess you could default route the traffic kind of into nowhere or something like that. But are there other options for people who don't have firewalls?
So that's definitely a technique. DNS sinkholing, right? Modify like the local DNS settings, and map it back to like the loop back address.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. We've had incidents where they didn't have the ability to isolate via software, and so it was actually physically unplugging. Gosh, I think it was like 2017 ish. We had a pretty large restaurant industry client that had multiple restaurants across the country, and they had to actually just physically unplug the firewalls from the HQ because at the time it was Fin7 was just going through and cleaning house on their network. So yeah, it's a matter of what I guess the company's abilities are, right? To how they isolate, and then as far as network segmentation goes, putting in firewall rules that prevent certain things, doing those routings and those null routings, definitely a technique. It's more, I think now, like that's kind of, in my opinion, like a little bit of the old way we used to do it.
Yeah.
Now we've got ways where we can go into the Palo Alto and we can put in a rule, or we can go on the local host, via CrowdStrike or whatever, and we can put in rules, or even in CrowdStrike you can block certain things. So
okay, cool. All right, so let's move on to
talking a lot.
Yeah, Cash. Anything? Look, I'm just throwing it out there, man. So
I'm a quiet guy.
Cash is like, hey man, anything past identification and logs, I don't want to talk about.
I just intake, man. I just take in data and I process it.
Well, we'll open it up and let you go freeform. So we're now in the recovery phase. Okay, so you kind of stabilized things. You're rebuilding, and I think you said, I'm trying to think, your backups were not compromised. However, but you mentioned, and you also weren't able to decrypt either, right? So in this scenario, so you're basically restoring machines, and you're shipping hard drives, and so so from this point,
they were pulling them down, and then also we were getting the hard drives.
No, as far as the decryption, I don't even think that was like an approach.
We never did it.
Yeah, like trying to even decrypt it, it was too far beyond that.
No, they didn't pay the ransom, so.
I don't even think that was like a consideration, was it? To even like go try to even pull down that route. It was just like
they're like, just restore from whatever you can.
Well, let's talk about that, because I mean, a lot of big companies, you got your data backed up, and that data's got to be brought back down. And so in theory, and the reason I ask these questions, because in theory, a lot of times we're going through incident response and from a more philosophical perspective, right? You're going through it physically, you're doing it. And so we're kind of trying to make these scenarios up and based on, recommendations from different places. But a lot of this stuff in reality doesn't work out the way because of stuff like bandwidth limitations, processing power, and stuff like that. So let's talk a little bit about the caveats. We got our backups there. How do we getting that data brought back down as you're rebuilding the network, man? Talk a little bit about some of those challenges and what you faced in that scenario.
I don't know. I mean, like, it's, again, like what Matt said, it depends on how much data it is, how many systems you're rebuilding, what systems you're rebuilding, how big the data chunk was. I mean, some nowadays, hopefully the companies that we work with, they all have these good EDR solutions. So it's a matter of just like finding the, couple devices that, went offline or are causing the funk and rebuilding those really quick. So that one isn't too bad, right? To restore from those backups. But if it is like that one company, huge data set, it's like terabytes, right? It doesn't matter how big your pipe is, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
So in that kind of instance, it's like a matter of, do you have your runbooks in place? Hey, if we need to go physically bring the data and pull it, who's going to do that? Where are they going to go? How fast can we get the drives here? Is it quicker to replicate it? And in this instance, it was, right? It was just like bring the physical data instead of just trying to pull it over the wire. And I mean, nowadays, I think one of my biggest concerns is making sure, and it's a new talking point, how do you make sure your backups are okay? Every night, like we say, some of your devices could have been encrypted and you don't know until tomorrow morning. And then you had a backup push out to your cloud at 2 a.m. Right. And then it's like, well, we brought the backups down and we pulled the information, but then we put it into the environment and boom, it causes that problem again. But I think, time is of the essence. How much time can the company really afford to be down is a huge factor in determining where you're going to do with the data. If they can say, hey, every hour costs us $100,000, then somebody drive to that data center, get the data, right?
Yeah.
But if they're like, hey, don't worry about it. We can, we'll spin up our hot site in the meantime, however long it takes us to build this, it'll build it. We'll hit download it. It'll take 2 weeks, right? So I think those are big factors, right?
I mean, this was an extreme situation, but I was in an incident with another company, and they got on a private jet that they had access to, flew to their data center, picked up their hard drives and flew back. I mean, not everyone has a private jet.
But, we got 2 jets. Hey, we need to write that into our incident response right now.
Runbook, put in your runbook. Like step 1, go to the private jet.
Go get on the jet.
But
call
typically,
the G5 pilot.
Cloud backup is going to be sufficient. It's just in that case, like I said, it was the worst ransomware that I've ever seen. Much. So I don't think they anticipated how long it would take to pull down the amount of data that they were trying to pull down,
Yo, Chad is saying it sounds like Mr. Robot right there. Yo, I think so crazy stats. I was listening to something on InfraGard Midwest today, and they were saying that auto manufacturers, if something should happen and they were down, I think they said it cost them $22,000 a minute for auto manufacturer. When they were down. So it's some crazy numbers out there. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just did a talk, was it last week? I can't remember, but it was a talk on ransomware and kind of the hidden costs. And I mean, I don't know, that's really a hidden cost, the downtime, but it's a factor in do you pay or not to pay, right? Like the FBI is going to tell you not to pay.
Yeah.
But if you're a company that's got money that you can spare, right? And we talk about this all the time. Is the downtime worth it? Is the extra consulting fees that you're going to pay for outside incident response team to come in and pay worth it? Legal fees, the hit to your brand reputation, your customer trust, the negotiation fees for the ransomware negotiator, the crypto escrow fees. I mean, there's a lot of things to factor in, but also loss of revenue, right? Like in this case, their retail stores were down. They had staff that was salaried that could not do their job, and they're still getting paid, right? So if the ransom's $1 million and you make this much money, pay the ransom.
I mean, if you're a $1 billion company, $1 million or $10 million is nothing,
Right.
So, I mean,
because you figure 14 days to recover fully. I mean, had we not got the retail stores up and running and no money's coming in, cash is just going out. Definitely be a different story. So,
but I mean, like I always say, paying ransom is like literally put it on black. You'll have, the same odds, right?
Yeah, it is rolling the dice.
Because you don't know if like, okay, I pay. It's happened in scenarios where the guy pays and then the attackers come back and say, hey, good. That was like the first payment.
Test.
Test. Now pay us more. That was we 1 million, we got it. Now it's 2 million, and then like,
that actually happened. I talked about that.
That's a real
in
deal.
that conference.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you have.
And never gave him a decryptor. The guy paid twice.
Yeah.
And they never gave him a decryptor.
Was this recently?
No, this was last year.
Because I mean, my understanding. Okay, this is like I said, my understanding is that the bad actors are really, they try to be more reliable with their decryptors now because
we've worked with some that were like super professional.
Some are. But...
We had one that was like it was the Babook gang actually. They came in, they were like, we want 400,000, and the negotiator was like, yeah, I can't do that, like, and got them down to like 60K or something like that.
Oh, that's
they ended up paying. Right, it was a great negotiation. Got him down, got the decryptor. The decryptor didn't work, so the negotiator went back to him like, hey, your software doesn't work, and the freaking Babook team was like, okay, let us let's troubleshoot this. Like, what's happening? And they like went through it. They troubleshooted. They wrote them a custom script. They got it working. It was crazy.
Are you kidding me? So
and during the negotiations too, they're like, hold on, I got to talk to my supervisor. And they would have to clear like the price with whoever it was that was overseeing it. Yeah.
It's
definitely operate like a professional 9 to 5.
But I mean, let's preference that. Operate like a professional. They are. I mean, they are. These are very professional. These are organizations. They're just criminals. That's on top of that.
Exactly.
Organized crime.
Yep.
Cool.
Professional organized crime.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But I think, you know, what's really, I talk about it sometimes with you, is these like professional organized crimes, their reputation now is kind of like getting tainted because of all these software as a service, these one-off guys buying cheap ransomware online, and then they send it, and it's like, how do you distinguish who's who do you trust? And but I think that's where we bring in some of our partners that at least kind of know who you're dealing with and say, oh, okay, no, they're a legit hacker group. You pay them, they'll give you the stuff. They're, you know, they keep their word, you know. And
it's funny to hear you say that. Like, you come in like it's almost like you walk in with a hacker reputation list. Like these are the approved hackers. They do good jobs, certified.
Like, they may not know their first and last name, but they know like their handle or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or they know their chat style. Like, I mean, I've heard them talk about how they profile these guys, and you know, some of them, like ex-NSA guys or ex-CIA guys that work for these places, they worked in Eastern Europe. They know these locations where these people live, and to verify who they are and whatever, they'll ask them for, you know, what color is the building in Luxembourg or whatever, you know, just to verify that these people are actually who they say they are and stuff like that. And likewise, the attackers or the threat actors will do the same to verify who they're talking to, just make sure that they know who,
which
you
is
know,
ironic.
it's legit. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's a whole nother. They're speaking English, but it's in language that I don't understand. You know, it's a different type of English.
Well, I got
different type of world.
Well, I got a totally random off-topic question. Is the CIA website on the dark web real or not?
I have no idea.
Nobody.
I don't know. It's kind of like the wireless FBI van that you see down the street pop
on
up
the
on
SSIDs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just asking because I mean that seems like a great place for the CIA to recruit. I mean, it's
oh yeah.
So anyway,
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the statistic is, but wasn't it like the Tor exit nodes are pretty much all run by law enforcement? I thought.
Well,
something
I mean,
like that.
So we were
like a good majority of them or something.
Well, we were talking about it yesterday. I mean, Tor is created by the Navy, right? And so, and I think our internet started off as what was it? ARPANET, DoD, you know. So, you know. By the way, do you find that criminals really do operate on the dark web as opposed to operating outside? Like, to me, like what I'm seeing from FBI and a lot of things is a lot of these groups and stuff like that, they're doing like encrypted messaging services, like Telegram and stuff like that, or you know, but not really so much dark web as much because law enforcement lives there.
Exchange of information, like anything that's stolen from companies, PII, you know, payment card data, whatever, dark web for sure. But as far as how the groups are communicating with each other, it's definitely like Telegram, WhatsApp. What's that one? It's like Slack, but it's encrypted end to end.
Discord.
No.
Oh no. Discord, do not. I can't remember That's a great way to get caught.
Let's not go down there. I have a daily battle with one of my colleagues.
We know Kash is not a cyber criminal, okay?
Maybe it is, but ICQ was one that the Russian, they were saying the Russian cyber gangs had pretty much taken over. Do you remember ICQ? It was before your time.
Well, this is old. You're talking
super old.
Oh my God. That took a second. There's like one brain cell that got triggered. It's like ICQ. It's like going down my like data banks.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're definitely, that's you know, because they don't want to make it hard on themselves, right? It's not. Yeah. I'm not saying it's super difficult to jump on Tor, but there's some precautions you got to take, VPNing, and there's like some hoops you got to jump through to make sure you're anonymous and all that good stuff. Whereas I can just get on an encrypted chat channel. Yeah, and then I don't have to worry about anything.
Well, then see that I was
for the most part.
I was on the soapbox last night because the majority of, or a lot of the VPNs are really owned by China, and so the concept of a VPN being secure, it's secure between you and the provider, but everything inside it's just nice and soft, and they can look at it. So So any US, who's your, I don't know if you can say, 'cause it's not an endorsement, right? But what VPNs do you recognize? Because I was really trying to find US based VPN companies and I couldn't find anything. Proton Mail is based out of Switzerland, I think.
Right.
So that's one, and I think NordVPN is based out of Panama, which some of our chat say Panama is just a great place full of shell companies. So, so do you, for those who are trying to be secure, any recommendations on which VPNs are?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you're using the VPN for.
You said the cartel.
I mean, it's like legitimate. Like I'm in a hotel and I'm, in Mexico and I want to watch Hulu, any of them really. But if you're doing like, I don't know, if you're doing shady stuff, torrenting or whatever, you probably want to pick one that's not in the United States so that your logs can't be
get your burner laptop.
Right, can't be requisitioned. So the one I used to use PIO, private internet access, I think is what it was. But then they got bought by some equity firm and I think there was some trust issues in the community. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna move on. So now I'm with ExpressVPN.
Okay, that's the one. We looked at them last night, but we could not find the bait, like where they were on, who they were really owned by. So anyway,
I don't think they don't retain their logs supposedly.
Okay.
Supposedly. But but I think if you do, like, I mean, I'm not a legal guy, so but if you were to VPN into like Switzerland, right? There's no US jurisdiction there, right? So they can't really ask for logs. I don't think. I don't know. I could be giving bad advice.
Well, we might be good on Proton then. Okay.
Who are you using, Cash? You got to use one.
So High Tech said just got.
You don't use any? Wow.
Wait, what?
Cash is a good guy. He doesn't do anything.
Well, when he said Discord for encrypted, I was like, if he said he's really putting up a good act here, or this is the most innocent man on the planet.
I don't do anything nefarious.
Well, I'll circle back. I got us off topic, man, but it's not, it's not every day we get to talk to people who know the answers to a lot of these questions, right? So we're now in our, I think we're in our recovery phase, right? Don't believe the quiet guy yet. The quiet guy who speaks Farsi, so he has most of the world is open to him. So but I do want to talk about I do want to ask questions too about when we talk about threat actors and stuff like that, because we talk a lot about, we don't talk I've not heard North Korea as much, right? But of course we're always talking about China and we're always talking about Russia, but I would like to talk about some of the threat actors maybe in the Middle East that we don't, because they're different specific focuses. Like I think the Iranians were doing a lot with actually drones and stuff like that, attacks and stuff like that. But I just don't like, I guess the Nigerians talk about the Nigerians a lot of times with the BECs, right? You talk about the Indians with social engineering, so I see a lot of that, but don't hear a lot about Middle Eastern threat actors from a cyber perspective. So just kind of put that out there. We talked a little bit, but let's go ahead and finish up with our restoration. So at this point, I think you were saying you're flying drives in. You got a good trip on the corporate jet with lots of drinks and
that was a different one.
Yeah, okay.
That wasn't me.
All right.
I just know that people did that. So recovery in that case, you want to talk about our cadence? It was kind of like, I think it was 8 hours, and then it was 16 hours.
For that same time,
to check in. And
it was just like small checks. I feel like a nice thing about recovery for some companies, it's like the silver lining a little bit, where some people, they come in and they inherit these systems that just by nature, as time goes on, become more chaotic and just messed up, right? And when this hits the fan, there's that one guy that's always been preaching for give me a budget. Now he gets it.
Yeah.
The second they get hacked, and now the corporate's like, oh, what budget do you need, right? So for that guy,
right before he gets fired,
probably his favorite spot, right? He's like, now I can buy whatever tools I want, and that's why where he's saying in 8 hour chunks, every 8 hours they get some more budget. So I think that's kind of where it went, and I think part of the recovery, bringing it back, is
safe checks.
The safe checks, right? Once, like you said, there's some machines that, hey, we rebuild from scratch. Let's make sure we dump the sensor on there now. Put it, even if we rebuild it from scratch, and the ones that, we're trying to eradicate it as much as we can, make sure it's as clean. Let's put sensors on these, and then we put them in their pools, right? we put these devices in their pools, let them live for, half a day, 12 hours, 8 hours, whatever it was. No strange malicious activity, no alerts going off, no malicious or suspicious behavior. Okay, now we can kind of start introducing them back in, chunk by chunk, group by group, subnet by subnet.
Yep.
And I think that's the real best way is, especially when you have these large scale enterprises, they have tons of subnets. It's like, instead of just saying, hey, you guys start trying to shove it in and we'll go all at the same time. Yeah, just
do a phased approach.
Yeah, do a phased approach, one group at a time. And yeah, of course, priority is key. I think that's one thing where when we come in and some companies are just a little bit confused, like where to start is say, where's your most important critical assets? What do you really need to get up and running? Which teams do you need to get touching the computers first? Is it, does HR really need to jump on first? Or, do we need to get your shipping center and all of them back up and running, or the stores?
Yeah.
So that it really depends on the company and I guess criticality and your business continuity. It all ties in to say where you kind of start rebuilding.
I mean, I think that was day one, even before we started with that client, even before we started our incident response, was outlining that those systems. And it wasn't even that we got it done. It was just that we had assigned some people that worked for the company to start prioritizing a list, right? Start naming off different departments and what business assets were needed to get to full recovery. And then we went and started doing the identification and containment. And by the time we had got back and done the eradication, where we're at the recovery, we had that list finalized. And then we knew which systems to kind of go through and start either wiping and restoring or introducing into the new network, because we had built a new network. I had kind of outlined that zero trust and all that stuff. So, but yeah, all that stuff happens kind of simultaneously, at least the prioritization, not the incident response life cycle. That's not simultaneous, but
and I think like in between that is like, during the process, you find out, hey, there's some technology missing while we're rebuilding and doing that. Let's start adding in your jump boxes now. Let's start creating more rules in your firewall. And,
Yeah, they had no multi-factor authentication in their environment. So that was one thing that we introduced them to. And, a couple different things, jump boxes. Obviously the zero trust model. Can't remember what else, but there was quite a bit. So.
Yeah.
All right. So
and then the last phase, I think, is lessons learned, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Lesson learned. What is a lesson learned? Don't click on
emails. Well, we're going to go back to that email. I want to talk about that, but we do have a question from chat that says, what happened if the backups were infected or has a persistent threat waiting to encrypt after restoration, which we've seen? I mean, we know that happens.
Yeah. I mean, that was the Babook situation. That was a different incident, but they had got into the backups and encrypted those as well. And so,
that's when you're kind of really pushed against the wall, right?
That's when that's when you really make that decision. Do I pay the ransom or not? And in that case, that guy paid the ransom or that company paid the ransom so that they could recover the backups. And then, Babook helped him out troubleshooting his software. Yeah. But, in this case with the huge manufacturer, that may have pushed them to pay the ransom, even though, they didn't want to pay the ransom, but luckily the backups weren't encrypted. Honestly,
if they were, that would have been,
like the construction company that Kash was talking about earlier, where they had paid the ransom twice and then never even got a decryptor. That was it. They were done. They actually had to contact their partners, their clients, and get physical copies of contracts and invoices and all that stuff to recover, because their entire infrastructure was wiped out, their accounting, everything. So I can't even imagine what would have happened if this global manufacturer would have been in that situation. I don't even know. I probably would have tapped out and be like, you need to hire a different team.
They would have.
I don't even know where to start with that.
We can't help you.
So, like, I've trained in crisis management. I don't know that there's no training for that one. I don't know what the answers are there. So, but that's, to answer that question a little bit more, that's kind of what Kash was talking about, testing those backups before you do recover from them, making sure that they are clean and not containing a threat. We've had other incidents where the main environment was fine, but the disaster recovery environment was infected. Remember that? And they had their cloud instance turned on just temporarily to do some patching, and it got infected, and their entire DR site, which was a hot site, got infected with ransomware. So then they had to restore from production. So yeah,
which is a better.
That's why you got to protect your backups.
Yeah, I'm even thinking like this whole thing is like, do you scan, the backups? It's like I feel like you need like a backup bucket.
Yeah,
it's like backup to the backup. Scan those if they're good, then push it to the backup.
Yeah, don't have your backups on the domain, right? Don't use domain users. Use users that are one-offs with multi-factor authentication. Don't have the freaking backup system connected to your network, right? Have it, or if it is connected, have it in a poll. I always call it like the poll, have it poll backups, but don't push your backups to it, right? So that system, it's only one-way connection into and not out to the backup solution, so that attackers hopefully can't pivot out to the backup solution. I mean,
and then if possible, if you have the offline backups, I guess, like manually every night somebody goes, or like I don't know,
with
just
the tapes.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting crazier.
Old school right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, people kind of moved away from that, right? To hot backups. That's just, somebody says, what was this says? I agree. I love those backup tapes, man. That terrified me. I was like, I knew if there was one job I did not ever want to do in my life, and that was to be the backup guy. I'm sorry.
I mean, remember, like, we're all around the same age, I think. Remember cassette tapes? Like, those things were so fragile. Like, I can't even imagine.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm glad I never had to. I was never that IT guy. Like.
But I mean, it's funny because you're talking about an evolution of what in 20 years, right? That's 20 years ago, which is not that long,
right? In
a lot of cases, but tapes and stuff like that, and the amount of data, that we if you go back 10 years, the amount of data that we've increased that we got to deal with is unbelievable, right?
Just look at video games, right? Video games used to come on like a 3.5 floppy, or even before it was like 5 1/4. But then you had the CD-ROMs and then DVDs, and you're just like, oh my god, this is 4 gigs. This game is huge. Oh, this game's 3 DVDs, right?
Yes.
Now you've got like Call of Duty Warzone.
I knew you were about to say it. I knew you had to be a Warzone player when you start talking about. Look,
dude, I can't even have any other games on my system.
So I have my PS5.
Oh my god! Like... I bought an Xbox Series S, and I was a Call of Duty YouTuber before I started doing this, right? And I couldn't install that in Black Ops Cold War. It was only enough space for Warzone. I mean, but that's the issue right now. Is we went from not having a lot of data to deal with, and it was just so much data, so much noise, and so many things to sift through, so many places for bad actors to hide, But I did make a couple of notes here. Number one, I think a good takeaway for most companies is you already need to know what apps are critical for your company, for your industry. What apps need to come up first? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order. And then also want to talk to you about zero trust. So zero trust it was a buzzword for a while. Now zero trust is becoming pretty real for a lot of companies. And honestly, from your perspective, how critical is it that you think companies need to start making the migration to zero trust at this point?
You want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. So how critical is it for them to move?
Well, meaning
I guess it depends on the business.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the company.
Size of the company. What do you have?
Industry,
right.
What data are you holding?
Yeah, it's tough because zero trust is not something that's easy to implement. It is a pain in the butt. Like, we deal with it here at Tevora.
Thanks for the follow, by the way. Go ahead. Sorry.
And we, just the fact that, like, Kash and I can't even share a file between our workstations. It's just
it creates challenges.
It creates challenges for sure. And so I can see client or end users just pushing back on it dramatically, depending on how much of it affects their daily work routine. And then that's kind of where you get into that spot where you create like kind of the best hackers, right? Or the workers that are trying to circumvent the security controls that you put in place because they're just trying to get their job done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess so. To answer the question about criticality, definitely, I think roadmap it. Make it as kind of like your guiding light. It may be a 3-year plan or something, but always be thinking, how can I better lock down this environment? If you don't have a jump box now, implement a jump box this year, and then next year implement, VLANs, and then the following year implement, least privileges and tighten more permissions. And the problem with zero trust is you really have to understand your environment and know your environment, because it comes down to, especially if you're multi-regional or multi time zones, which users are where, what times do they operate, 9 to 5, all that good stuff, so that you can get a really effective zero trust implementation. So, and you can flag on those, if Kash all of a sudden logs in from the Ukraine, well, I know that he doesn't work out of the Ukraine. So, and then, or if Kash logs into something at 3 a.m., not usually typical of Kash. He's pretty lazy, so he goes to bed at no, but I mean, stuff like that. So like we have users that, operate all hours of the night. So it's really kind of understanding what you're dealing with, which could take time. So, but I think the more ransomware from an enterprise side, right? From a personal side, you probably don't need to worry about that stuff too much in your home environments. But the enterprise side, depending on how big you are, definitely start working towards that. And I love it, zero trust. I love the idea of zero trust. Living within zero trust, like we do, not great, but it's a necessary evil.
So you think at some point zero trust will pretty much be the standard, like in the next maybe?
I hope so. I don't think it'll ever be the standard, but
really, okay. It's just I guess it's too difficult to fully implement. As the barrier.
I think it's extremely difficult. A lot of companies that we work with don't even know what assets they have. So implementing strict rules on
stuff you don't know exists,
right? Like marketing shouldn't have access to this server. Well, you didn't even know you had that server. Like,
true.
Stuff like that. So.
One size doesn't fit all from chat. Agreed. All right. Sorry.
Yeah, and one size doesn't fit all. Right. That is the other thing too.
Boss, thank you for the follow.
That statement.
Yeah. All right. So let's dig into it. So I want to take a step back. I'll circle back to let's make Kash happy for a second. Okay. In order of importance, name the top 5 log sources for your SIEM that are necessary.
Firewall, DNS stub, endpoint, your servers.
When you say server, when event log or other?
Your domain controllers, those for sure. Your firewall logs, and I think between that, the end user logs, and I think your critical applications that users use on a daily. Your email logs are huge for sure. Anything that has to do with logging in, if you have an SSO solution, track your login activity on those. And I think that's the good top 5: email, your SSO, your domains, any servers, and your end users.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. So that's a free nugget. All right. So let's go ahead. We finally reached the end, or the last phase, right? Lessons learned. So, all right. We finished restoration, right? Did we cover everything? Okay. All right. So let's talk about lessons learned, and let's talk about how that should be done right, and kind of your experiences with that, things companies need to improve on, things companies do wrong in that phase, if that's such a thing. So
lessons learned, what can they do the best? If the company has runbooks and playbooks in place already prior to this incident, definitely reference those, understand where the gaps were, discuss them amongst all the teams, of course, and constantly try to revise and rebuild your playbooks to see, hey, where did we miss a spot? Where can we improve upon? And I guess it's pretty case to case, right? See where you're missing stuff and try to fix it, I guess, is the biggest lessons learned. I don't know, what else would you add to that?
I think the biggest thing that people do is they don't do lessons learned, right?
Most of our companies do it,
right?
Course,
most of our companies don't do it. But yeah, learning from what happened and doing it as soon as possible too. Like sometimes we'll give an incident report, right? Everything will be cool. We'll provide a report, and then they'll come back to us a month later and like, hey, can we get that report from you? We never looked at it or whatever. It's like, did you not do kind of a meeting with your team, everyone that was involved, and kind of go over what had happened and how do you implement? Like, you're a month past an incident, and did you do the firewall rules, or did you implement that solution that we recommended? That's the thing. And you want to do it as soon as possible too. You want to do it within a week. I would recommend. And I think our buddy Andrew Gorecki, who just wrote a book on this very topic, I think he even put in there that a week is a good time frame, just because it's fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah.
I think our the NIST incident handling guidelines even recommend that time frame. But yeah, you want to get everyone that's involved. You want to make sure it's fresh in everyone's memory, and talk about what went wrong, what went right, and how you can do things better. We do that here. We go through our incidents, even if it's not our incident, but our client's incident. What could we have done better? How could we have found that information faster, right? So like in the case of the manufacturer, did we really need to do the right blocking, or could we have just done triage forensics is what I call it, to get that information faster? We probably didn't need to do right blocking. In hindsight, they're never going to go after those threat actors. There's nobody's going to go handcuff them and bring them into court and do not all that good stuff, right? Maybe it benefited the FBI. I have no idea.
You mean those indictments that they can never follow up on, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, and I talked about that too recently, is like the FBI in 2018 was like, yeah, let us know if you have ransomware, because we need to track all these cases. And now they're like, hey, we're sorry. We're just too busy. We have too many cases. They're not going to not take the case, but they're just inundated with so many different cases now. It's definitely a different message that you get from them. And that from InfraGard, I'm sure, from hearing it.
Yeah. The FBI was very straightforward. Do not pay ransom. Do not pay ransom. Yeah. And then over the course of a year and a half, there's like, we recommend that you don't pay ransom, if possible, but we understand your business needs to, and then now they're in there negotiating with the bad actor.
There's a good example. I can't remember if it was New Orleans or Atlanta. I want to say New Orleans, but one of them got popped a couple of years ago, and the mayor or someone refused to pay the ransom, which I think was like $70,000. None of these numbers are 100% accurate.
That wasn't Atlanta, was it? Was it Atlanta?
Atlanta, I think
got popped. But
they did, but I think they paid. I think theirs was like $80K or something like that.
We just got raided with 94 people. Oh my God.
Wow.
So you guys got to start all over from the beginning. Oh my God.
But yeah,
so welcome.
So one of those, whatever city it was, they didn't pay the $70K, I think it was, and instead recovered, and it took them a year, and they spent $18.2 million or something like that.
What did they learn? Do you think they learned?
I don't know, but like
wait,
70K versus 18 million.
So they chose not to pay the 70, ended up paying 18 million.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't remember what city.
Welcome,
it was.
everybody.
Definitely a municipality.
Okay. Cool. So, all right. So at this point, did we cover everything? I do have one. This is one thing I really need to. Hey, by the way, let me meet the streamer. Anytime somebody drop 100 people in my stream, I want to know. Let me go back and find them right quick, because I want to personally thank them and follow them. Yes. So let me go through. Yo, where's the streamer? I'm trying to find the streamer's name. It's rolling off so fast, man. I tell you what, I get stressed a lot of times when I get a big raid on Twitch. It does stress me out a little bit. All right, let's see, the alerts keep going off, but I can't find. Okay, there it is. All right, I can't click on his name. I'm gonna find you. All right, let me pull up your stream right quick and definitely follow you. Thank you. Sounds like you're somebody in cybersecurity. And for those of you that are just joining, we're hanging out with Tevora. We got Matt and Kash from Tevora. They are incident responders. These are the guys that actually, when big companies or small companies get popped by hackers, they actually go in, and by the way, just followed you. They go in and they make things better, or they try to contain. They do what they can, right?
We're there for moral support.
All right, good deal. So I just followed you, man. Thank you, dude. Thank you so much for the raid. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish up, because Matt, these guys have got to get out of here. So let's go ahead and let's make sure we wrap up If you have any questions about incident response, please go ahead. All right, and drop that in chat. So he's also said that streamer says he's a red teamer that generally does CTFs on stream. Okay, cool. That's exactly what I do when I'm not goofing off and playing with malware or something like that. As long as I don't violate Twitch terms of service. So you guys are, I guess, as incident responders, are you considered blue teams? But you guys have some very, very serious red team skills, I'd imagine. Or are you?
I think that kind of comes with my background. I always wanted to hire the cross-trained team that way. So everybody that I bring on, I want them to have that offensive background, that skill set. I think it just helps you be a better blue teamer.
Agree.
Having that background.
Agree. And that's why I work so hard on Twitch to build my red team skills, because I feel the same way. I feel like when I go back to work now, since I've been doing this, I feel like I think a little bit different from the way I did before. I just don't approach things the same way. I think about scenarios that I might not have thought about before, because you can get kind of like lulled into a sense of security with your logs. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times you're looking at your logs, but unlike Kash, who's like you're bouncing around from place to place, seeing different angles, right? I'm seeing the same logs every day, right? I'm seeing my company's logs, and that can lead you to a lot of times to just get comfortable, think you're doing a good job, and I'm really not prepared when things happen. So I did want to talk about this. This is a big area of my team, probably drive my team crazy with this. And I kind of stopped doing it, but I have a big issue with runbooks and playbooks, right? Number one, differentiating between runbooks and playbooks, and then the critical things like how detailed and who are you writing your runbooks for? Okay.
We just had this conversation.
All right, okay. So I'm not by myself. Okay. So if you would please, like from the standpoint of somebody who does incident response, that means these runbooks that we wrote are not just for our team, right? These are for people like you who are going to be coming in and you're going to need to see the runbooks and playbooks. So let's talk about the difference between a runbook and a playbook. Let's talk about the details, like when I say details, like literally what your runbook needs to be. Who needs to be able to understand that runbook without somebody having to hold their hand, and playbooks, etc. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one. I use those terms interchangeably. So I may be breaking the rules.
Okay.
To me, playbooks and runbooks are kind of the same. So I guess first off, I'd ask you, is there a difference? And maybe I need to correct my terminology.
Well, I'll be honest with so I mean, and I'm trying to think back to my SANS training here, because I mean, you got procedures, right? And my understanding is that runbooks were equivalent to procedures, like they're to be followed step by step, right? Policies, procedures, and it's something else. There's three things that SANS teaches you in class. And so to me, a runbook needs to be written like step by step what you do. Yeah. And so the fight I get to with my team, and I love them to death, but we man, like sometimes I feel like a lot of times we just like, well, we just leave this to interpretation, like, and I feel like that's dangerous, and they may be right, because I know you can't write out every step either. That's not feasible. Right. And so it's just trying to figure out where is the happy medium between a step-by-step that anybody can walk into my company and read, and a procedure that's so long that it's not even possible to follow or write, so.
Yeah. So, and we were just having this discussion. We've had both, right? And it depends on our clients, honestly. And that's kind of the benefit of being a consultant, is you get to see what different companies do. My opinion on the matter is that runbook should be procedures, but they shouldn't be
click here,
like go to this URL, input, it shouldn't be like very granular detail, but it should be kind of a checklist of items. For phishing, let's do phishing, for example. Hey, we think this file attachment's infected. Okay, so we grab that file, we throw it in a sandbox, or we do some sort of analysis on to see if it's dangerous, whether that's Virus Total, hybrid analysis, whatever tool you use, FireEye, I don't know. Throw it in that box, determine if it's malicious or not, detonate it, etc. Grab those IOCs, inform the user that it's been infected or that it's malicious, and delete that email. Look for anybody else in the environment, delete the emails, or look for any other messages in the environment, delete the emails. Let everyone know, like, that received it, that it was bad, and then grab that hash and block it in the environment from the future, right? Block that sender, move on.
Block the URL. Yeah.
Right. I don't need 35 pages telling me how to do that.
Well,
some of our clients do have that. They want 10 pages. I think a run book should be 10 pages tops and 3 pages if you can do it.
Okay.
It should be the shortest that it can be, right?
So I need to go back and apologize.
Something that's quick and easy to follow, and it just makes sure that you checked everything off that you needed to check, right?
Okay.
And then as far as who needs to be able to read it, yes, any outside incident response team, it's helpful for them, but it really is for your team. And anybody outside your team, they don't need to worry about the content, right? Like I don't need to know if the front desk person can triage malware, which we've had clients like that. They're like, well, anybody in the company needs to be able to do this. I'm like, no, they don't. But someone who's technical, that's part of the security team or the IT team or network team, they need to be able to read this and be able to get through it in your environment, because you may get hit by a bus. I mean, I had a boss literally get hit by a semi truck, and it was tribal knowledge, right? Like it left with him, you know? So, I mean, that does happen. That is a real scenario where people aren't existing anymore. And especially in this day and age with COVID, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, but you know, people do miss work, especially if you're being quarantined or sick. And so someone else needs to be able to read that information and be able to execute on it. And so, it should be minimum amount of steps and procedures, but detailed enough that anybody on the team can achieve the goal, the end result.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes.
Is that a good summary?
I got to take a second. I got to think. Black Hat GK just gifted 10 subs in chat, man. So thank you very much, man. That's huge, man. Dude, y'all coming through tonight, man. Appreciate that. Love Twitch. Told you guys, y'all got to be on Twitch. Are y'all convinced? Yeah. Are y'all convinced? Okay.
We're working on it.
So wait, is there a Tevora Twitch channel while we got folks in here?
Not yet.
Oh my God!
Just got taken right now.
You go exactly. So y'all just missed out, because I was gonna put there, and we can start you off with like what 70 people, right? You know.
No, I will call you. Don't worry, I will call you a second.
Well, we gotta
flip. Hackers let us give us some time, but
we gotta flip the script and have you on ours.
Yeah.
Hey, I would love to, man. So the thing is, all right, and by the way, everybody that's joined here, I just want to give you a quick background. So Matt and Kash, they are incident responders. They've worked some really crazy jobs in their past, and so I hate that you're coming in late, because you missed out on some crazy stories about some of the things they've seen. But if you have questions, if you're trying to get into the field, this is a great opportunity. Like a lot of you guys, you're on Twitch like me, you're practicing red team skills. I'm a blue teamer, so I'm already in the field, but I need that other skill set to go where I'm going to do what I'm trying to do in life, right? Which is I want to be able to help my company form purple team, like start purple team. That's really what I would love to do. You know what I'm saying? So let's see what we see in the comments. Blue team. I want to read these comments, make sure we get, by the way, drop your questions. So always happy to support, said Black Hat. We need more InfoSec. There is more InfoSec coming. This is the second company I've talked to today about getting on Twitch. So Savitar and Tevora. Okay, so 2 companies. I'm begging them to come to Twitch. Hopefully they will listen, and y'all will get a chance to see these guys. And they do have a podcast. So are y'all in the chat, in the Twitch chat?
We are not. No.
Oh man, it's just
right
a double fail. That's you got to always be in Twitch, chat, so you can see the questions coming in. All right, so blue team always slow to the game. I agree. Blue team can be slow. You can, but I mean, you can. It's like the Jedi and the Sith, right? Okay, all right. So
that's funny.
Let's see. What NGAV platforms are you responding with?
What platforms?
NGAV. I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, next
gen AV. Next gen AV.
Like
okay.
CrowdStrike is our primary one that we use. That's the one that we like the most now. But we've used Carbon Sentinel-1.
Silence is pretty good.
Silence. Windows
fairly good.
8 Advanced Threat Protection, ATP.
Yeah, the Windows Advanced Threat Protection.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. ATP. Yeah. That one's cool.
That was pretty decent. Yeah, for Windows environments.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Dude, it's almost too much information. Honestly.
Yeah, Cisco AMP is pretty cool too. It's not bad. There's a lot. I mean, and that's why we work with so many companies. We get a little bit of taste of all of them, but I think
there's some that I won't give name to, but there are some that are bad.
Yeah, there are some that are terrible.
Let's see.
Like the one that company was using, we won't say anything,
100%,
but not good.
Yeah.
That's right. So dash says, pay 40 million for a decryption key that may not work, or invest in training and tools for defenders. I agree. It's so dumb that we having this,
and pay those four defenders $1 million each.
You know, one thing you have to keep in mind though, nowadays it's not just ransomware, right? They're doing ransomware data extortion, right? So
triple
that, yeah, that 40 mil that was paid is not necessarily nowadays to decrypt or let me get the tool and get me going. Is holy smokes, you know, the data they got a hold of is like the blueprints to whatever. We can't let those get out. Yep. Right. So that's what that 40 million may have gone towards also. It's not the fact of like, well, we'll get our systems back up and running, but our data, man, we don't want that to end up in the wrong hands. So that's a biggest factor this past year is no longer just data wearing.
Yep. First extortion is the decryptor. Second is, hey, we've got your data and we're going to put it on the dark web.
That's a new one, right?
I just invent stuff. It's cool.
It's darker than the dark web, the black web.
And then the last thing is going after your partners. Like if you had any data that your partners on your systems of your partners, they'll go to your partners and say, hey, we stole all this information from so-and-so. You can pay us so that we don't publish it online.
Yeah.
And so that's been a new trend in the last few months as well. So
gotcha.
Ransomware has definitely evolved a lot from 2000. Well, it's been around obviously for over a decade, but 2018, which is like the WannaCry era, which was like individual computers at $300 a pop, to just in May, whole enterprise CNA paid 40 million. You know, the evolution in just a couple of years is insane. So
what I've done is I put all the Tevora social media there. Also, if you want to see the replay, I leave all my replays up, but I'm also going to edit this down. This is going to go on my YouTube channel. So guys, I'm just going to pub it like just quickly. I'm almost at 13K on YouTube. Like literally, I am at
this man a Playbook.
Well, let's just get to 13K first. Okay. So currently on YouTube, I am at 12,975. So I am 25 people away from hitting 13K on YouTube.
5 fake accounts. I could have.
So no, don't do fake accounts. If you don't like it, I'd rather you not subscribe.
Well, they're legitimate accounts.
Yeah, because the algorithm. If you don't watch,
I just have like 5 different Gmails.
well, there's my YouTube channel. If you don't watch it, lots of funny things. So what I do on this channel is a lot of times my channel is 100% geared towards helping people to get into cybersecurity if you're not in the field already, and then for those in the field, helping to be able to advance your skills and grow within the field. What I'll be doing on Twitch, if you follow here, you'll see me like tomorrow. I may be on here going through. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Probably turn the computer off. Okay, so you come to the best platform. Oh, the best platform to stop ransomware. That's a question that came in. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Somebody just can't follow. I missed that one. I'll see it in the chat just a second.
I don't have an answer for that one.
No.
So no platform. Just sub. Appreciate it. Thanks for the sub.
Just don't click on anything.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I did want to talk about the email. So one last thing. Thank you so much. I'll see it in the chat. There's another follow. So that email that she clicked on.
Yep.
A POUGHT. Thank you. APOUGHT. Thank you so much for following. Wow. So I'm sorry. Let me read these. They're coming through. I see a sub just came through on YouTube. Appreciate that.
Nice.
Joseph Ross, thanks for the sub on YouTube. All right. So the email that she clicked on, what did they use? There's another sub came through. Thank you much. What type of email did they use for phishing her with? And Jorge Rosso, thank you for the follow.
Yeah, it was if I remember correctly, it was a Word document that said this message is encrypted. Click here to decrypt, which was pretty standard phishing. And then it ran a macro virus, which was a PowerShell script that allowed him to get on it was a combination, I think, PowerShell and WMIC and some BB script. And anyway, it got him on her box.
Brandon. Mm-hmm.
And then from there, so her box had gotten completely wiped. So we don't really know what they did from that point to get to the domain admin. But I mean, we all do what we do. We know I'm sure Mimikatz or, something was dropped to grab those Windows credentials. And then from there, pivot or migrate, or they went to another box and did the same thing. So,
yeah. So Mimikatz or you use Bloodhound or any of those.
Right.
Yeah.
So we didn't see any remnants of Bloodhound, but I mean, again, most of the systems were wiped. So it's kind of hard to follow those tracks after that. But
I guess moral of the ransomware story is just like, don't click on anything.
Yeah, we have a sticker. Don't click on shit.
Don't click on
don't click on. I feel that. So I got a question coming from chat. Tips to getting into entry incident response role. That's coming in from High Tech.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, so for Tevora here, we do an internship program. So if you're majoring in computer science or you have an interest in incident response, that's one way to do it. As far as any other company or any trying to get into the industry, training, participating CTFs, there's the National Cyber League that you can participate in. Getting that kind of knowledge and hands-on keyboard, I think, is really important. Certificates, it's hard to recommend certificates only because they're so costly. Yeah. I hate to tell someone, hey, go get SANS when it's $7,000, and where you can go get something else like, I don't know, something that's like in the $700 range.
Irish, thank you so much for the follow.
That'll get your foot in the door, and then you can have a company pay for that SANS cert later on. But yeah, there's tons of courses. Udemy, I'm sure colleges now have
your project. Stuff hey, thanks for the sub. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
But yeah,
Black Hat, man, thank you for killing it, bro. You're taking care of me. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Interviewing with people like me. I don't necessarily, because of my background, I don't necessarily look at someone and say, oh, they don't have computer science, I'm not going to look at them. I actually like having the different backgrounds, and I'm more on the fact that you're gung-ho and hungry.
What is it? Was that Raven Zill? That font is kind of messed up. Raven, thank you for the follow, by the way. Sorry, I'm muting in.
You're good. And then Cash, where would you go?
No, that's it. I mean, I would say just, use your curiosity.
Indie Monkey, hey, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate it.
We're saying, if you go backwards a little bit, go red, start with the red team side.
Yep.
That helps you explore. There's a lot more learnings on, getting those inner workings of the computer system, understanding exactly how everything works. Then once you jump over, it's definitely a lot more easy to understand and kind of get onto that side of it. But
yeah, IR is really a jack of all trades, master of none type of gig, because there's so many technologies that we have to ramp up on real quick in order to triage or identify what kind of systems going on in the, or what kind of issues going on in the environment. So really anything, I guess, in the networking, computer security side of things, but doing the red team stuff, doing offensive security stuff, in my opinion, just gives you that edge, because when you're dealing with real life adversaries, you can predict the methods and tactics that they're going to use. Like, I mentioned, we didn't see it in the logs, or we didn't see the actual remnants of the tool being used like Mimikatz, but we can figure out that there's only so many methods you can use to pivot and escalate your privileges, right? And so we can start making those assumptions, and we can jump to the next step, and then we can see if we can find that evidence there. So having that background is really key. So yeah, definitely starting in offensive security is always good.
Hey, I just literally saw a job come through on the feed, like no cap. So if you got red team skills, looks like Conda just posted on Twitter. I'm gonna post this in chat. Y'all need to know who Conda is, man. But they're hiring Bloodhound, ironically. What?
I was in their job description.
Yeah. He literally. All right, let me pull this up. He said we are hiring on the hashtag Bloodhound Enterprise team. The Conda tweet. So drop this in. I'll share this with y'all, okay? And if anybody's looking for a job as a cyber, thinking about making a move, here it is. And Matt, hey, hey, do you have any openness too right there? Are you trying to fill some positions? You say you got intern positions.
We do, yeah. We have a consultant development program that we're actually working to fill right now for this new session. So I can provide that information to you later.
yeah. And I'll say, I mean, honestly, my thing is, like, for people in cybersecurity, you got to be thinkers and go-getters, man. Like, the name of the company is Tevora. If you can't find the link to
Yeah,
apply for
find it.
this, you don't need to be in the field. I'm just keeping that's the way I feel. If you can't find the link to apply, or can I at least share your Twitter, Matt? That's what I want to do too. Can I share that with the group?
Yeah, you can. I think it's private, but
okay,
they can reach out to me that way.
Okay, good deal. I'm gonna get a copy of that, and hopefully maybe next time I talk to Kash, because the thing is, I just want to tell y'all, like I'm not really trying to do like one-time deals, by the way. Like that's not what I'm trying to do on this channel. I'm really trying to establish relationships and help build the cybersecurity. You see like that raid, man. Hundreds of people, man, or almost 100 people, and this happens every I would say at least every other night. I get hit with somebody who's a cybersecurity stream dropping hundreds of people in my stream. So this Twitch community is emerging, and so we need people like you all to help people like us who are, at different, like I'm blue team, but I'm trying to get better on red team and stuff like that. You guys you're the experts. And so we really do need y'all to help to kind of build this community. Let me ask a few more questions here. He said, join late here, Matt and Kash. Do Matt and Kash stream here on Twitch too, or is it, they're a guest right now? But we're fussing at them because they're supposed to be, but they promised me that they're coming to Twitch, right?
We will. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So be looking for them individually or under the Tevora name on Twitch. They need to be registering this right now. You need to have your phone over because somebody's literally you're gonna have to buy it back. You're gonna get ransomed on your Twitch channel. They're gonna be Tevora Inc. 005.
We'll be the real Tevora.
All right. So, what do you think is the best way to detect or monitor and memory execution malicious executables, like maybe a custom C# executable or any threat hunting tips for it? That's coming from Irish922.
I mean, I think the fastest way in that case is to probably just dump the memory and analyze it with something like volatility. Yeah, I think that's probably the only thing. And then how you would get that memory just depends on the type of system, right? So if it's Linux or Windows, there's various ways you got to go about it, but not going to dive into that.
Hey, well, what are the free ones? I know you got, you can do it in, you say volatility, Cape, and FTK, right?
Yep, FTK as well. Yep. Yeah, if you have if the memory dump, whatever file it's in, you can drop it in FTK. So.
Any preference? Which is your favorite?
I like FTK.
FTK, me too. Me too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do use multiple ones. So
it depends. It depends where you are, what system, what your access is. But
yeah. All right, let's see. All right, see if we got any more questions. Tevora streams Farming Simulator 15. I think somebody got y'all already, man. So Farm Simulator. All right, so Black Hat. So once again, thank you for gifting the subs, man. What is the one thing you wish a company had done before they called you?
Had logs. That's almost always had logs, because when we get in there, that's the one thing we ask for, and it's always not there.
Okay,
not always, but it's almost always.
Okay, and he said as in forensics, so I think that still covers it, right? You just make sure they had logs.
Yeah. All right. Don't turn off the system. If you need to isolate it, just unplug it.
Okay.
Because when you turn off the system, then you lose volatile memory. So which we can use to get some things. So.
All right, and GoPro Slow, by the way, hey, please follow GoPro Slow Yo, another InfoSec streamer on Twitch. Make sure you follow him. Black Hat, I don't know if you stream. All right, and so you guys, we're across the mark. We're 4 minutes past.
Yeah.
That being the case,
we had a hard stop at 6, but that's okay.
Okay, all right. So that being the case, they're on the West Coast, guys. We got to let them go. So man, y'all go ahead and take off. Here, thank you for coming on the channel, man.
Great.
Appreciate everything.
Nice talking to you.
All right, and we'll wind down the stream here in just a second. So y'all go ahead and drop. I'll change my overlay
here. All right,
here.
take care, everyone. Thank you very much.
See you, man. Thanks.
This is great, Kendrick. We'll reach out. Yeah.
Appreciate it. See him on Twitch, right? Y'all heard it. They promised it.
All because of Kendrick.
They promised.
Thank you, sir.
So all right, so. Man, first of all, I just want to thank everybody that came through. And
all right, take care.
All right, okay.
Bye.